We live in an age of information, but also of arguments. Everyone has an opinion, and every opinion sounds certain. Yet certainty isn't the same as truth. Our minds are clever storytellers, and sometimes they tell stories that feel logical, but aren't. In this video, we'll slow down and look closer. We'll uncover 10 invisible traps in reasoning the logical fallacies that shape how we think, talk, and decide. No Latin words, no academic walls, just a clear, honest look at how even smart people can think in very human ways. Have you ever argued with someone and felt absolutely certain that you were right, only to realize later? Maybe you weren't as logical as you thought. We like to imagine our minds as tiny computers. Input facts, output truth. But that's not how the brain works. It's more like a skilled lawyer, not searching for truth, but for ways to defend its client you. And that's where logical fallacies come in. They're the invisible cracks in our reasoning, tiny shortcuts that feel right, but quietly lead us wrong. In this video, we'll uncover 10 of the most common fallacies. No jargon, no Latin, just simple real-world examples of how our brilliant human minds trick themselves every single day. 1. Ad hominem. When logic gets personal. Imagine two people debating climate change. One says, the evidence shows human activity is warming the planet. The other replies, oh, please, you drive an SUV. You're a hypocrite. That's an ad hominem. Instead of challenging the argument, we attack the person. It feels satisfying, like scoring a point, but it proves nothing. It's a bit like ignoring a fire alarm because you don't like the person who pulled it. The alarm might still be right. Year 2, Strawman fighting a made-up enemy. Sometimes, instead of wrestling with what someone actually said, we quietly replace it with something easier to defeat. That's the strawman fallacy. If I say we should reduce plastic waste, and you reply, oh, so you want to shut down the entire plastics industry, you're not arguing with me anymore. You're arguing with a cartoon version of me. The danger of the strawman is that it makes conversation impossible. You can't build understanding when you're busy burning imaginary enemies. 3. Appeal to authority. The celebrity of truth. We humans love shortcuts, and one of our favorites is trusting whoever seems powerful, famous, or confident. That's the appeal to authority. Elon Musk said it, so it must be true. The doctor on TV said this diet works. But authority doesn't equal accuracy. Even experts are wrong sometimes. The truth doesn't care about status. It cares about evidence. Believing something just because someone powerful said it is like trusting a map simply because it's printed in gold ink. Chart 4, false cause. When correlation pretends to be causation. Every time I wash my car, it rains the next day. Clearly, washing cars causes rain. Sounds ridiculous, right? But this mistake, the false cause fallacy, hides in almost every headline, every argument. We humans are pattern-detecting machines. We evolved to find connections even when they don't exist. If two things happen near each other in time, our brains link them whispering, this must be cause and effect. But correlation isn't causation. Two things can dance together without leading each other. 5. Slippery slope. The domino fantasy. If we allow students to use phones in class, next thing you know, no one will study. Society will collapse and civilization will end. The slippery slope fallacy is fear dressed up as logic. It assumes that one small step will inevitably lead to disaster. But real life isn't a row of dominoes. It's more like a web of choices full of friction and resistance. Between a phone in class and the fall of civilization, there are 1,000 decisions boundaries and corrections along the way. 6. Bandwagon. Because everyone thinks so. When enough people believe something, it starts to feel true. That's the bandwagon fallacy. It's the logic of trends, mobs, and memes. If everyone's buying a certain stock, we feel smarter buying it too. If every influencer says a product works, we assume they can't all be wrong. But truth isn't democratic. 1,000 wrong voices don't add up to one right one. History is full of moments when the crowd was confident and completely mistaken. 7. False dichotomy. The world isn't black and white. You're either with us or against us. Either you love capitalism or you hate freedom. That's the false dichotomy, forcing a complex issue into two neat boxes. But life is rarely binary. Most questions exist in shades of gray, in messy, uncomfortable middle grounds. When someone gives you only two options, it's often because they've hidden all the others. And that's usually where the truth lives. 8. Circular reasoning. When logic chases its tail. Why is this true? Because I said it's true. And why does that matter? Because it's true. Circular reasoning pretends to prove something by repeating it in disguise. It's like trying to lift yourself by pulling your shoelaces. We see it everywhere in slogans, in politics, in dogma. The law is just because it's the law. God exists because the Bible says so, and the Bible is true because God wrote it. It sounds confident, but it builds a fortress out of mirrors. 9. Hasty generalization. One story becomes all stories. You meet two rude tourists from France and think, ugh, French people are so rude. That's a hasty generalization, drawing a big conclusion from a tiny sample. Our brains love to generalize. It's efficient. It saves energy. But it often blinds us to nuance. Reality is statistical, not anecdotal. One loud example doesn't define the group. It's like judging an entire forest by the shape of one tree. 10. Appeal to emotion. When feelings replace facts. This one is subtle because emotion is powerful, persuasive, and deeply human. Think of the children. Imagine how sad it would be if... The appeal to emotion fallacy happens when arguments lean only on feelings to bypass reasoning. It's not that emotion is bad, it's that it should guide empathy, not evidence. A tear can open your heart, but it can't change the numbers. Why our brains keep falling for these traps? You might be thinking, all right, I get it. People use bad logic. But why the answer is surprisingly kind. We evolved to survive, not to be philosophers. A caveman who jumped to conclusions might live longer than one who paused to analyze. When he heard a rustle in the bushes, better to assume tiger and run than wait to check for wind patterns. Over time, our brains became experts at fast reasoning. Pattern recognition, shortcuts, emotional cues, all of them useful. But in the modern world, those same instincts betray us in debates, politics, and everyday thinking. We still react faster than we reflect. And sometimes that speed feels like certainty. How to catch a fallacy in the wild. Here's the trick. You can't stop having fallacies, even the smartest people fall for them. But you can learn to notice them. Next time you hear a confident argument, pause and ask, is this attacking the idea or the person? Is it relying on authority, popularity, or fear? Is there missing context, a hidden middle ground? You'll start to see patterns. Conversations ads, social media posts. They're full of tiny logical traps, each designed to push your buttons. And the more aware you are, the harder it becomes to be manipulated. The real skill, intellectual humility. Ultimately, avoiding fallacies isn't about winning arguments. It's about cultivating humility. To admit, maybe my logic isn't flawless. To ask, what would prove me wrong? That's not weakness, that's strength. Because truth doesn't need defenders. It needs discoverers. And the only way to discover truth is to be willing to dismantle your own certainty piece by piece. Thought to leave you with. Next time you find yourself in a heated debate, try this experiment. Instead of thinking, how do I win? Ask, what if I'm wrong? You'll feel a small shift, a quiet awareness that truth is rarely loud, rarely simple, and never personal. That's the beauty of logic. It humbles us. It reminds us that our minds are not perfect, but they can learn, reflect, and evolve. And maybe that's the most logical thing of all. If you enjoyed this no jargon exploration, stick around, because the world is full of complex ideas waiting to be explained plainly. Logic is not about being perfect. It's about being aware. The moment you recognize a fallacy in others or in yourself, that's not a failure. It's a sign that your mind is waking up. Because the goal isn't to win arguments. It's to understand the world and to think just a little more clearly each day. If you enjoyed this exploration, stay with us. There are so many ideas waiting to be explained plainly.